You.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's just 9 a.m. We'll call the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting for February 22nd to order. First order of business to approve the minutes of the prior meeting, which was January 23rd. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review those minutes. Take a motion. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor McDowell. Any discussion or question on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Let me welcome Supervisor Smith from Johnsburg to the committee.
Thank you.
Happy to have you with us on the board and this committee.
May not say
Thank
that
the
later,
chairman.
but thank you for saying that today.
Great. We thank the chairman for appointing you as we had a brief vacancy. Let me ask the committee first, if there's anyone with interest in being the vice chair. I know Supervisor Conover's name is listed second. I'd rather have one of you that says, yeah, I have a genuine interest in being the vice chair. I don't know how many meetings, if any, I'll miss, but it's great to have somebody there that would like to be there versus just appointed. So is there any general interest from any of you?
I'd be more than happy to. If you'd like me, I don't want to get out of practice. Someday I might be a chairman again, so you never know.
I appreciate
But
that.
I'm a vice chair of the, if you need someone, but I don't want to step up for myself. I know Craig, but even Mr. Smith, I mean, if you'd like to,
I definitely
Grab
have
the
the interest.
bull by the
I'm not
horn.
sure I have the experience, but I do have the interest.
No,
we can put it
I
out
have
for vote.
experience, but I don't have the interest.
Maybe I retract what I said.
Okay. All right. Looks like the volunteers have indicated their wishes. So Supervisor McGowan will be the vice chair, the second vice chair, Supervisor Smith. Okay, man. Thank you.
Good. Thank
All
you.
right.
guys.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the agenda. The first item is the district attorney's office. Our district attorney is with us. There is one item, the request to apply for aid for a prosecution grant.
Yes, thank you. This one should be brief. Every year since I've been district attorney, we've been applying and receiving this grant. And back when 6 years ago, it was like a big grant. It was 38,000. Now it doesn't feel so large because it's still 38,000. But it's to supplement our ability to prosecute violent and serious crimes. The good news is good and bad news. We haven't received any information about this year's, but this is that time of this season when we typically need to be in a position if they say it's available. I read in the paper that the governor is seeking to triple the amount for counties. So that would be great news and obviously a big help if that were to occur. So the only thing I would say, and Ryan, this morning I sent you a copy of last year's. It didn't have a dollar amount in there, which I think is good because our hope obviously is it might be bigger than it has been in years past. But we're asking to make the application and if granted that the county could receive the funds so that we could do that work.
Yeah, for clarification, the grant, the resolution is annual. It's to apply, to receive, and to execute the agreement once the monies have been notified that we're able to receive them. So.
Okay.
Move the floor.
Motion by Supervisor Leggett, second Supervisor Smith. Any discussion, question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if all the work and funds have been appropriately used in previous years.
You're asking me? Oh, yeah. Yeah. We, so unfortunately, we can burn through that number prosecuting violent and serious crimes with, less than one attorney. And obviously we have, I would say a huge percentage of our cases are violent and serious crimes and repeat offenders. So the number in no way does what you'd hope it to do. But yeah, that one is never one where we're short. We do have another grant that maybe you're thinking of, speaking of your experience, that is tied to very specific cases. And that one, usually it's a larger number. And oftentimes we don't hit that mark because you don't have that exact type of case that fits the bill. This, obviously, most of our felonies would be deemed serious felonies. Many are violent felonies. So yeah, that one, every single year we've received it, we've utilized the entire amount.
Supervisor McGowan,
Thank you,
question?
Mr. Chairman. Jason, I just want to thank you for being proactive.
Doing my best.
Every now and then we get a reactive and it's a rush. So thank you for seeing this, and let's cross our fingers that our governor increases it. I know our public defenders get a lot of grants, and unfortunately it doesn't slide as much on the other side. So this is kind of nice. Maybe they're seeing both ways, and I hope they don't take it out of the other department to give it to this department, because that's what sometimes New York does. They rob Paul to pay for Peter, you know what I mean?
Well, if I'm going to thank someone, I've got to thank Paulette McDonald and Nancy Ovett, Nancy helps manage these, and Paulette keeps me on my toes getting up here at the right times. So I can't really take any credit for that, but they can. So I'm glad they sent me up here.
That's a good team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion on this item? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Anything else you want to relate to us today?
Well, on just the subject of the budget, you heard me speak before on this, and I don't want to belabor it, but the cost and resources to execute the discovery side of the criminal justice reform is really unbelievable. It's the only way I can describe it. It's extremely burdensome. And it's we work on it every day. So not only are we working on the delivery, daily I'm trying to update and improve the systems that we have. And because there's been a limited amount of appellate decisions on these issues, there's a lot of unresolved things, which means there's a lot more litigation on topics related to discovery and discovery disclosures. And I'll share this. The governor says that she's seeking to put substantial resources this year towards that, which would hopefully allow us to have the resources to get it done. I'll say we're fully staffed with attorneys right now, and we're managing things the best that we can with what we have, and that's what we're always going to do. But I'm hopeful that perhaps some of that comes in, because for this whole system to work, we need to have the resources to gather, collect, organize, prepare every single file so that it can then be delivered to defense attorneys throughout the county. And just here as an example, we have the public defender present, in his office, I think, has several attorneys. They received our discovery. And then you've got, I see Rob Greger, who is attached to assigned counsel. We work with all those attorneys. They receive our discovery. Then we have all of the private attorneys we work with. So last time I checked, we had well over 100 attorneys that we are providing discovery for and dealing with criminal cases on. So it's a never-ending, nonstop, 365, 7-day-a-week process that's still ongoing. So I'm really knocking on wood here that the resources continue to come from the state to help. Well, that's all.
Good. Well, thank you for keeping us posted on that. Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Jason. Last month, you notified us that one of your first ADA was
Yes.
the recipient of a statewide recognition, one of only a few people. And congratulations to him, but also to bring Warren County to the forefront of, having good people working for us. I think that's a wonderful thing, and congratulate Matt on behalf of all of us.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I do think it's worth mentioning this. When I talked in the past up here, I've mentioned about retention, getting good people, keeping good people. Matt's been a prosecutor for over 17 years in the office. He was just awarded one of 3 in the state of New York, the other 2 coming from 2 of the boroughs in New York City, to receive the Morgenthau Award, it's a really prestigious and wonderful thing that he received. And to get him to the point where he's someone who can receive that, it takes his dedication, his time in, and we're hoping that those next generations might be here. But for them to be here and be a part of Warren County, we've got to retain them. I do everything I can to try to keep a good environment and hopefully retain those people that want to be here. And it matters, because now we've got one of a select few prosecutors who's really excellent and who's protecting victims and making sure that justice is being done. And one of the things I'll point out in that award, I did nominate him for that. And when I put in my nomination, I talked about some of the things that he's done to make sure that the system is protected. He encountered a scenario with a trial where there was a recantation during the trial. He immediately brought that to the attention of the court. It led to a mistrial. It was very difficult. It was very upsetting. We were still able to then later prosecute that case and get the right result. But it's that kind of thinking and awareness that you've got to do the right thing, no matter what, no matter the challenging circumstances you're in. That's the kind of person we want here. And that's what we want from our entire office. And part of that comes from experience and from putting in the time and doing it for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to remind everyone also that our district attorney also received that award in 2014. So
Easier to get back then. Thank you.
Any other
Sorry if I've
comments
gone
from the
over
committee?
time.
No? Okay. Jason, thanks very much for being here and for all that you do and your staff members. We express our
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is the probation agenda. We have our director with us. There's two items, or without a objection, I like to combine those. The first is to enter an agreement with Washington County Youth Bureau in the amount of $23,075. That's regarding Rural Communities of Practice Phase 3 grant. And then the second request is to amend the county budget for that amount. So without objection, I'll look to move that, but would you like to just brief us on both of those?
Sure. Good morning and thank you. This is a grant, the second grant we've had with Washington County Youth Bureau with respect to the rural justice grant that comes from DCJS. This time around, we want to enter an agreement with Washington County. They're the lead agency in this grant. They are going to, part of our grant is for them to give us $23,075. So we'll be taking that money into the county and amending our budget. What we'd like to do with that is to use it for overtime for our juvenile officers who do work outside the scope of the typical business days. There's different things we've done with projects around this that entailed nighttime and weekend type things, being out in the community. So that'll give us an opportunity to pay these individuals when they do that. The grant goes into the first quarter of 24, so it gives us a little bit of time past this year as well. So we have a good partnership with them, and we're continuing to move forward.
Okay,
Move it.
move both requests. Okay, thank you. Supervisor Leggett, second. Supervisor Smith. Any additional discussion or questions? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. I wonder how our relationship with the Washington County Youth Bureau is going. That's a new relationship, isn't it? We've had one for 10 years or so. We've dealt with them at least. So with respect to us, we do a lot of restorative practices in common. We do community type services. We do other things. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Mike Gray and the Alternative Sentencing Bureau and Youth Bureau. So from our perspective, it's gone well through the years.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Follow up to Supervisor Leggett's comment. The Department of Social Services has also embarked on a number of other more recent partnerships with Washington County and the Youth Bureau and kind of a combination of programs and services that they're delivering, and they're doing a good job at it.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There's one discussion item. This is something that we talked about previously as well in reference to the secure detention issue in Oneida County.
Yes, thank you. This will probably be a discussion item that we will keep on probably for the majority of the year because it's an ongoing issue we have. Just a little update. Last time I was up there in January, we talked about an adolescent offender that we have in Oneida County Jail due to the lack of specialized secure detention beds within the state of New York. An update, we have paid the bills for 2022, was a little more than $110,000. We were able to get that from excess money from our department. The money is 100% reimbursable. I've amended the Raise the Age plan. We've submitted the claims to the Department of Social Services, who would submit the claims to the state through their JDAS system, as they're accustomed to dealing with detention. We're not, but this is probably a unique situation for us. So we've paid the bills, we've submitted the claims, we've amended the budget. So from our perspective, we've done what we're supposed to do. And we will keep track of what transpires with respect to how the state, how quickly they reimburse us. So that's 2022. 2023, that individual is still in Oneida County Jail. He is returnable on March 16th to the youth part of the county criminal court. It's a situation where, not to get into the case too much, but it appears to be a case that may go to trial. So there seems to be no agreed resolution in the forefront. So it appears he could be there for a little bit. So we're still paying $16.45 a day. That translates to a little more than $50,000 a month. For 2023, I don't have any excess money to deal with that at this point, but but the bills will be coming. So my suggestion would be, since it's 100% reimbursable, would be to amend the budget, raise the age budget for revenue for a figure, maybe $300,000. That would probably cover this and anything else we have. And then either put the money to pay for it in a miscellaneous account that we currently have, or get a different account from the treasurer, maybe, raise the age specialized secure detention account. So the situation that hasn't gone away, we're there till at least March 16th and probably further. And this is something that we didn't account for when we did the budget, because this was something that we didn't know about. The interesting thing about raise the age in the state is, as time goes on, in many aspects of what they do, particularly around detention, they change their rules and regulations because they don't have the room for individuals. So they have the ability to modify what they do, but the bottom line, it affects the county and how we deal with the situation. So my recommendation would be to pay for 2023, that we look to amend the budget to account for that. I have no other, I don't have the money to pay for it. So
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. That we increase the revenue and to accommodate the expense and the expense line proportionately. It's the same dollar amount. And then that creates a due from situation within the county budget. So it'll have no significant impact, other than we would be expending the dollars in anticipation of the reimbursement. But
Okay.
we've been told that reimbursement will be arriving at some point in time.
All right, Tammy, see any issues with this request?
No, I think this is what we should do. If it's fully funded, it's gonna have a zero net effect to the budget.
All right, do you want to move on it today, or do you want time to speak with the treasurer first, or?
My suggestion would be move on it today, and then we'll clarify the account codes with the treasurers for the finance meeting next week.
All right, accept the motion. Supervisor
Can I
McDevitt,
just
your
ask-
question?
I just, the adolescent offender, he was from Warren County?
he's from Warren County, and the crime occurred in Warren County.
Okay.
So we have jurisdiction.
And one point of clarification, this is a mandated obligation of the county under the county law. So the county law does specify that it falls upon the county to either enter into a contract for a secure bed or define and pay for one. So it is statutorily required.
Thank you, Ryan.
Supervisor McGowan,
Thank you. I would like to move that motion, but also I have a question.
let me get a second first then.
All right.
Second, Supervisor McDevitt. Okay, now on the question, Supervisor McGowan.
But that doesn't include the transportation. Obviously, we have to go pick him up, bring him back here for all his court dates, and then bring him back out there. So
That costs
you
us
needed a little more to, who does that?
currently Mr. LaFar in the Warren County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, well, he's got enough money. We don't.
I mean, typically, and that's a good point, and I can explain what the process is for reimbursement on transportation is typically for the individuals that fall under raise the age, the sheriff's office provides us with the documentation for the transports in time. We wait for for what we do is then after the county pays the bills, we submit a claim to the state. And then the state pays it whenever the state pays it, which is sometimes would raise the age. And I'll be clear, they're not very quick at paying some of these things. I'm hopeful with detention that comes a little bit faster. Yeah, I've monitored and asked the treasurer with respect to detention claims that have been paid by DSS for things, non-secure detention. They seem to come within a month and a half. Raise the age has been a little bit longer. So to answer your question, if we wanted to deal with that, we certainly could. The sheriff's office, we deal with Terry on a regular basis. Luckily, we haven't called them in about a month. They've been fantastic. So if it's a case where they submit bills and we pay them and then submit for the state, I mean, that's out of my scope, but I have no problem doing that if that's what the board wants to do.
Well, may I?
Go ahead.
I just remember talking about it last month, so that's why I brought it up. I just want to make sure if we're going to set up this account ought to be set up to, because, our sheriff's going to come in and say, hey, this is costing us some money and we, so I don't know what the committee feels or our chairman. I mean, I've just, since we seem to be on a proactive day today, I'd like to keep moving forward.
Well, it was a recommended amount.
Pardon me?
You had a recommended amount.
I was not knowing how long this individual is going to be here. He's at least here till March 16th. So about 50,000 a month. So if we go into March, we're about 150. And this case, like I said, appears to be going to trial, so he could be detained a little further. Once he's sentenced, if he is sentenced, then the responsibility goes to the state. So I think if we put that figure in and then we wanted to include reimbursing the sheriff upon their quarterly claims or however the sheriff wants to submit those, we could do that. And I think that figure at least would cover us initially for at least till June or so. I'm hoping that, things get better. And the next time, if we have a situation like this, after this is resolved, we're able to access a specialized secure detention bed. What the difference is then is the state bills, the detention service bills the state directly. And it's not, if we're not in a county jail, then it's not a county billing function.
Do you want to read what the request is?
But travel is able to be reimbursed too by the state.
Correct.
Okay.
That's true.
So it still becomes a net thing. I just want to make sure we have enough. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, let's just clarify what the total amount being requested is. It's 50,000 a month for how many months?
At least till the end of March. If he comes back March 16th, so I mean, there's almost 150,000. And it's probably going to go a little further.
So would 100,000 be reasonable? 300,000.
Yeah, that's what we did last year. I think 3 would be.
Come on, man.
I would think 3 would be reasonable. And if it's resolved in
Okay.
April, then
All right, so there was a motion. Do you agree with the amount? 300,000?
That's not including transportation, correct? Because transportation would be reimbursed to the sheriff's department.
I mean,
That's just for having the adolescent offender housed at the Oneida County Jail, correct?
well, we could use the 300 for not only for housing, but for transportation if we chose to do that. It's reimbursable, so I'm going to be the one submitting the claims.
Okay.
Reimbursement for, I think one for this individual that we had for the time period was probably in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 10,000. Would that sound correct, Sheriff, for a couple months back and forth?
Think a little lower.
Yeah.
All right, there's on the question, any other questions from the committee? It was 300,000. Okay, Sheriff, do you want to add something?
If I may, the sheriff's office, our role really is transportation, so that's salary and fuel. And for us, we submit to probation, and when it's reimbursed, it's not necessarily reimbursed back to us. Our concern is that it comes back to the council. So we're going to chew at our overtime fund sooner with these transports. I think that if there's a code set up and there is reimbursement, that you look at just making reimbursement payments into probably our overtime code and then our fuel codes. But I don't even know if that's really necessary, because we could maybe take a look later on in the year to see where we're at and see if we can address those deficits within our own budget. So for us, it may be best just to leave the transportation portion of the way that it's operating.
All right, without disagreement, then we'll move. There was a recommendation for 300,000 to establish that account. We had a Motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Keep that as
Appreciate
a
it.
discussion item and I will keep the committee updated as we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, public defender. We have 6 items. I think items 4, 5, and 6 can be combined, but we'll start with 1 to request to engage in an internship program with the Albany Law School. Greg, you want to explain that to us?
Good morning, Chairman Girassi, Chairman Garrity, honorable members of this committee. I would like to first request that the first item be stricken, as that has been resolved through consultation with the county attorney's office. It appears that action from this committee is not required.
Okay.
So ask that item number 2 and 3 be considered together. Item number 2 is a notice of intent to fill a vacant position. And that would be the Assistant Public Defender number 3, brought upon by the resignation of a young assistant public defender. She has resigned and it was effective a few weeks ago. And we would like a resolution and permission to fill that vacant position of Assistant Public Defender 3 after the resignation, which has been completed. Item number 3, its companion, is a request to decrease the salary of that non-union position for the purposes of amending the table of salaries. The position originally was used to pay the resignated public defender the salary of $73,116. We would request that be reset to $71,015 to reflect a new entry level vacancy of that position.
All right. Supervisor Driscoll.
I'd like to move 2 and 3, request 2
All
and
right,
3.
second. Supervisor McGowan, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Items 4, 5, and 6, without objection, I'd like to combine those. 1 is a request a new position. 5 is to fill the vacant position, and 6 is to amend the county budget. So any background you want to relay on that?
Well, as this committee is well aware, a substantial amount of our funding comes from the Office of Indigent Legal Services, who keep strict tabs on our ratio as to how many cases each lawyer has. And the funding is often contingent that we meet these standards set by the state agency of ILS. And in doing so, and in their goal of trying to achieve this ratio, they continuously fund for new attorney positions. This request has to do with the Harrell Herring creation of a new assistant public defender position. It's a newly funded position. It is completely and 100% funded by the Harrell Herring Project. And we would like permission to create this position and would also like permission to fill the new position. We would obviously have to amend the county budget to add the appropriation and revenue for the ILS funded assistant public defender position into the public defender budget of 2023.
All right. Request to move items 4, 5, and 6. Supervisor McGowan, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions, further discussion? Supervisor Smith.
How long will they fund that for?
It's in perpetuity. And so long as we continue to meet the ratio of attorneys per client ratio set by the state.
Supervisor Leggett.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it safe to assume that we have more clients? each year?
Yes, and it's also safe to assume that we're striving mightily to maintain the ratio, because not only are we getting more clients, but unfortunately, we're getting less available attorneys. This circumstance is going to be even more aggravated if the state increases the assigned counsel funding rates, in which will now be competing with lawyers with the assigned counsel panel. Don't know what's going to happen when that occurs. Did you want to say something?
Supervisor Driscoll?
Yeah, I was just gonna say ratios or something, just just that the public defender's office doesn't have to deal with sheriff's department, certainly has to deal with that. I know that the state office of temporary disability assistance requires that of the Department of Social Services and their various departments. Caseworkers are only expected to manage a certain number of cases because of efficiency and timeliness and so certainly it's a necessary response to the work that you do.
Yes, and we also, I'd like to add, have revamped our conflict rules so that we are, it's a much narrower definition of what constitutes a conflict, which ultimately results in having to refer less clients to the assigned counsel panel, which we think saves the county substantial amounts of money. Before, there was a very broad definition of conflict, one that I don't necessarily think was compatible with the rules of professional responsibility. We've revamped those conflict considerations, and it ultimately does result in a greater caseload for our attorneys, but it does save the county a substantial amount of money in that they don't have to pay an outside lawyer on an hourly basis. This will be even more significant if and when they raise these hourly rates, which seems to be coming down the pike.
All right. Any other questions or discussion items? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You had one discussion item listed, vacant attorney positions of recruitment.
What was that? Oh. Yes,
Stuck that
that
in.
was, yes, that was a discussion item, and I was going to have our assistant public defender and former superintendent of the New York State Police, Mr. Kevin Bruin, come and speak to you a little bit about what steps we have taken for recruiting purposes. He's doing an amazing job in that field of recruiting. And unfortunately, he was notified on Monday that his father passed on Sunday. So we will try to get him up here next meeting to make the presentation.
Anything else for us?
I would just like to add my own recognition of the professionalism and amazing ethical model that first assistant prosecuting attorney Matt Buren has displayed in his office. I have practiced in opposition to him on many years. I've tried several cases against him, and I can tell you, despite the antagonism that our adversarial system often inures, he has been nothing but a gentleman and of the highest ethical order. And it's a pleasure to do business with such a person.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for being here. Next is the Office of Emergency Services. Our Director, Anne-Marie Mason, is here. Anne-Marie. The first item has been before this committee before, actually was passed by the committee. That's the Warren County Domestic Terrorism Prevention Plan. It went before the board and did not pass. So it's back before us again. Remember, this is mandated by the state. This is not an optional plan. So Anne-Marie, any background?
I'll bring it to the floor. Bring it to the floor.
All right. Motion to move it forward by Supervisor Luckett, second Supervisor McDowell. Any questions or discussion for Anne-Marie? Supervisor Conover.
Yes, Anne-Marie, I think I requested that you send this out to the supervisors so that any concerns, comments that they might have, that they could get them to you. Are you in receipt of any of those?
I have not received the comments back.
Well, I don't know what more Anne Marie can do relative to any concerns that the board might have. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Without objections, I'd like to move items 2, 3, and 4 together. This is a total amount of $10 that needs to be adjusted through the deputy EMS coordinator. It moves to adopt the budget correctly and then to increase the salary again by $10. Anything you want to add to that, Anne Marie? Pretty straightforward.
Actually, yes, it is pretty straightforward. Thankfully, it is a small amount. And so they should be increased to $8,233
All right,
for each of those.
motion to move items 2, 3, and 4. Supervisor McGowan, second. Supervisor Smith. Any discussions, questions? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Without objection, I'd like to move items 5, 6, 7, and 8 together. They're all applications for grants. The first is State Homeland Security program. The second is Local Emergency Management Performance Grant. The third is a Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant. And the last is a hazmat grant program. The motion to move those 4 together. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Smith. Any questions? Any discussion? Anne Marie, anything you want to add to that?
Just to mention for the item 8, the FY21 hazmat grant program. That's one that we're part of 7 county consortium in, and we will actually be the fiduciary county this year for that grant.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Anne Marie, you got a couple of discussion items. The first is a New York State Emergency Management Conference. February actually occurred already.
Yep, February 13th to the 16th. So that conference occurs obviously annually. And we've only had it twice since COVID. So it's been nice to get together with everyone again. And part of the conference this year, they went over threat assessment briefing. Jackie Bray was there, the commissioner. She went over some of the DHS updates with us. And it was really nice to get some briefing on the Buffalo snowstorm response. And there was also, I believe it was a mayor from Miami-Dade to discuss the condominium collapse that happened down there. It was nice to hear some of their viewpoints and some things that, were done well, some things that, they could do better. So it kind of helps us all learn as we go through these types of incidents. It was a very, very well organized conference.
All right. The second discussion item is a closing policy. You've given us an attachment for that. Go ahead.
So I'm not sure if anyone has had a chance to review the closing policy. The previous closing policy, I'm not sure had ever actually made it to a resolution. What it was created in 2017 and kind of covered or tried to cover a very broad spectrum with specificity. What we've done with the plan now is to kind of make it a little bit easier to follow. And, a lot of departments will have some of their own planning to do based off of this. And we're trying not to include that in this particular policy.
All right. Any questions on that? All right. Next item is the regroup mass notifications. Anne Marie?
Yes. So we had started to look at this based off of something that came out of a security assessment that was done maybe 1.5 years to 2 years ago, which indicated that the county doesn't at this particular point have a mass notification system for employees. So if there was ever an incident or any type of emergency that happened either on campus or anything else that any type of critical notification that we need to get to employees, this particular company, we've looked at a few of them, and this company would be able to provide us with software that we would have some control over to be able to reach out to our employees. The employees can be reached via telephone, voicemail, email, texting, and they can choose up to a number of different options. So depending on where they are during their day, if they just have their cell phone with them, they'd be able to get a notification. And I kind of think this is important since we have a lot of staff that either go out to homes or doing home visits, that we'd be able to communicate to them if there's an incident or something that's happening on campus, whether it could be an emergency closing or perhaps maybe there was, an active shooter or some other type of incident on campus where we wouldn't want them to return. We can at least let them know and they could get this type of notification. So we've been looking at that, and the cost for this is right now $2,075. It's pretty, I think it's a pretty nominal fee compared to some of the other ones we've looked at. And this particular company also has other things that it can branch off into. So if this was something we determined it would be useful for us, there's other things we can look at further down the road as well. So it's something we can grow with.
Amory, question, how does this tie into the emergency notification app that we were just rolling out?
So this particular thing would be just for employees only, and it would be based on an upload of employees' information to it. Whereas your app is open for the public and you have to actually download the app onto your phone. So it doesn't have any of your personal information in the app. So that's the difference between the two.
Supervisor Conover?
Yes, we have an alert system in Bolton for different types of situations, sewer, water breaks, that kind of thing. Works very well. Same situation, you can receive the notification at home on your telephone, on your cell phone, you can receive it on the internet, you can receive it a number of different ways. I think it's a very, very, very useful tool and helpful in managing our employees during times when we need to communicate to all of them quickly, which isn't always, any other way is impossible. The old way you had these trees set up and they were only as good as they were. So this is, I think, a nominal expense for what I think is an important communication tool with our employees, and I support it completely.
Supervisor Leggett?
Yeah, thank you. Town of Chester is looking at a similar thing, but it's a web-based. It would be a module that's on our website. Would that be also an option for the county to take through our existing infrastructure?
I think it would be. Yep.
Instead of a standalone.
I'd have to take a look at the software. We do have another meeting coming up with a representative for this, and I can put that out to him and see if that's a possibility. Yeah, there was another feature of this I thought was helpful too, is it can have a number of administrators in this particular setup, and you can set up several different types of groups of employees. So if one department wanted to use it specifically for something else besides critical notification, that could occur. So there's many different ways to use this through the employee setup, if you will. So you can have like the main bucket for all employees, and then possibly each department head could create one for themselves for communications with their own staff as well.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairman. I see these types of expenditures as insurance policies. The first time that you access it, for whatever reason, you met your investment, and people's health and safety have been satisfied, and that's what it should be about.
Yes.
So
Yes, it is. The other thing to take note of as well is many of our plans and annexes that we have with the county references mass notifications to employees when there's different occurrences. And at this point in time, the only way we have to do that is telephone trees. And over time, some of that gets lost. When you've got employees that are coming and going, that information is not always handed down or changed or updated. So it's kind of difficult to make sure that we're hitting everything where we need to.
Let me, questions, budget, confirm the amount again?
The amount for us would be $2,075 annually.
Is that startup or annual?
That's annual.
Annual?
I can find out what startup would be if there's anything over and above this on Monday.
Okay. Do you want to wait a month and come back with specifics and we can look at the budget? Tammy, question?
Just a point, there's funding in Anne Marie, and I had discussed, Anne Marie brought this up a couple of months ago, I think it started. There's funding in the technology allocation of $250,000. that was done as part of ARPA. And so for the finance meeting that's coming up next week, we will be reallocating what's remaining in 2023, and this would be I would think this expenditure would fit well into that because it was our reaction to COVID and.
So request to move this to finance for their review. Motion Supervisor Conover, second Supervisor McGowan. Any questions, discussion?
Yeah, I just would also add that you can also set this up that under certain circumstances, you're also notifying the media. For example, that our constituents, residents aren't coming to an activity that's been closed for whatever reason, which only compounds, if it's an emergency, only compounds the emergency as well. So it has a lot of features which could be added over time under certain circumstances that would assist as well. So I
Yes.
just would add that.
Supervisor Smith?
I'm wondering about the redundancy of this, only because some emergencies by the definition, you're gonna lose data, you're gonna lose power, you're gonna lose comms. So this system might be down during an emergency. Or people you're looking for, they may not have their phones, they may not have data available. So I'm just wondering how that would work, how that's integrated into all this.
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways. If people have requested that they can be reached via text or via their home phone or, generally, hopefully most people will have their phones charged. I mean, yeah, if this became an event that lasted over time, a couple of days, 48, 72 hours, maybe they'd be losing charges on their cell phones, but at least this type of communication could get out to them that way if there was that type of an event.
Towers. That's kind of what I mean,
Yeah,
but
hopefully, I don't think that's an occurrence that's gonna happen frequently to where it would dispel the use of this product.
Any other questions? All in favor of moving this to finance? Excuse me, Amanda?
Confirm what is the idea of this scenario or money, or is that already on?
It will be, it will be on finance to reallocate the funding for ARPA. So this would be just the use of it, so I don't know that there's anything to move it on yet.
You don't really need a motion to do this. There's already going to be an item on finance to reallocate funds. This committee doesn't need to take any action.
Okay, no action needed.
She's going to withdraw your motion by Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Withdraw the motion? Yes, okay. Supervisor Leggett, you had a question?
Thanks. Wonder if we can send out this closing policy to all board of supervisors members so that they're aware of it.
Let's go to board first.
Yeah, I believe, Anne Marie, this is just an idea of the policy. It hasn't been adopted, correct?
No, it has not been adopted.
All right, there was one pending item, but we've already discussed it. That was the domestic terrorism prevention plan. Anything else, Emery?
No.
Can you just give us an update on the registration, the public registration for the emergency app?
We're pretty close to 1,000 downloads so far.
1,000?
Yep. And of course, we'd like to increase that as well. So we're still doing some more marketing of the app. We're going to get out to some other agencies, probably the out at the chambers, and make sure that they've got the flyers available and put them up. So we really want to get this out there, especially with the summer season coming up.
All right, with this pending weather in different parts of the county might have different implications. Can you just tell us again if Horicon or any other community had something specific that we needed to get out to our community? What's the process to do that?
We could do that ourselves. We've got the ability to push out a notification. So you're automatically going to be getting notifications from FEMA, from the National Weather Service, but we've got the ability to also create our own notifications. So if there's something we needed to pinpoint to a specific community based on zip code, and it's got, a buffer set up around that, just in case there are people that are close to it, that we can send that notification out.
And how do we make that happen?
Just reach out to one of us and we can go into the portal and
So
do
it's
that.
at 10 o'clock at night. How do we make it happen?
Give me a call at 10 o'clock at night. Yep.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I read in the paper, there was a situation up in the town of Hague. And I guess my question is, if you identify by the zip code, do contiguous communities, Bolton Landing, even Ticonderoga and Essex County. Is there a mechanism for them to also get notified?
What I would do is ask them to reach out to us if you want anything posted up there for your communities, and we can get that information pushed out.
All right, thank you. Anything else for Anne Marie? Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff LaFar is with us. Sheriff, thank you for being here. Just
Thank you. Good morning.
two items. The first is a request to amend Resolution 113 of 2019 to authorize payment to Tyler Technologies for maintenance and support of the sheriff's office, computer-aided dispatch and law enforcement records management system software. Sheriff?
We've utilized this vendor for a number of years and are pleased with the service. Did not realize that the annual payment was not addressed in the resolution. The auditor picked up on it this year when we attempted to make payment, and her suggestion was to just amend the resolution to allow for this year's payment. Add a provision in the resolution that would allow us to continue forward so long as it did not increase by more than 10%.
Yeah, motion move the request forward. Supervisor McGowan, second. Supervisor Leggett. Any questions, further discussion?
So to clarify
Supervisor
this,
Leggett. Supervisor Leggett first.
Okay,
Go ahead.
and on that 10%, under sheriff said that that was plenty of buffer. It's not as if it's going to be 10% increase in here, but it was recommendation of the auditor to make sure that it would accommodate an increase.
Correct. From 2020, the annual increase has been just a little around $3,000, just under 5%. And we would anticipate that it would be consistent for years going forward. If we notice that it did increase significantly, we would reach out to the vendor and try to work a lower rate.
All right, from our county attorney's office.
so I spoke briefly with the undersheriff, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think today what we're going to be voting on is authorize an increase in the not to exceed amount to the $71,759.77 with an option to enter into future renewal agreements as long as the annual increase doesn't exceed the 10%. So that would give you the opportunity to enter into future agreements without the need to come back for another resolution.
That's exactly correct. Yes.
Okay, I had a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The second request is to amend the Queensborough Union Free School District Resource Officer Agreement. Sure.
Our SROs are budget neutral for the county. And Queensbury has asked us to provide services pre-student arrival, post-dismissal. And to allow for those services, we just need to increase the contract by $5,000.
All right, motion moves forward. Supervisor McGowan. Second, Supervisor Leggett. Any questions, further discussion item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Sheriff, anything else for us?
I don't have any discussion items, but there was a referral item from September relating to the MAT, Medicated Assistant Treatment Program. I just wanted to touch base with our supervisors because I think there's an ISAC conference that's coming up, just to give you feedback as how it's affecting our sheriff's office. We went from, prior to this legislation, having roughly 15% of our inmates participating in a program. Post legislation, as of today, we had 30 inmates with a population of 85, so about 35%. And there's absolutely value in the program when it's utilized correctly. But beyond that, just to share, we've been struggling with diversion. The inmates will receive the medication and not utilize it properly, keep it on their person, bring it back to their cell, and it's used illicitly under those circumstances. We learn of this, and we've had a number of full housing unit searches. These housing unit searches have resulted in incidents. So if it comes up as a topic of discussion during NISAC, I just wanted to provide that to you so you could share information intelligently with other county legislators and representatives as how it's impacting Warren County.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan.
Jim, this just unfortunately, it's a jail and there's criminals and their minds think this way, but I just for clarification for me, when this medication is given to them, why can't we just stand there and make sure they take it and then they lift up their tongues like we were little kids and that, and our mother checked out to make sure we took our medication?
We do. And we have officers that assist medical, and we have procedures and protocols that are in place to do everything possible to eliminate the diversion, reduce the diversion. People are creative. They come up with ways to hold on to this medication until they return to their cells and then release it and utilize it at a later time. We do everything that we can. There is another form of drug or medication available. It could be administered through an injection, a shot, but it's far more expensive. And not to say that everything is guided by cost, but at this point, we haven't reached a threshold where the issues that we're facing would warrant the extremely more added costs.
Well, I was thinking more like a liquid. We have to drink it. But I'm sure they figure out how to hold that liquid and
I've asked the question to Prime Care, our vendor, and I'm not sure that these certain medications are provided in a liquid form. We've been doing everything we can. This vendor, this Prime Care, they work in several county facilities throughout our state and other states. And they know the problems that we're all facing. They are struggling with these same problems. And I think that they're not just looking at it as a quality of care issue, but also as a liability issue, because when these drugs are not used properly, it could result in, incidents that would result in liability for their team. So we're all looking at it. We're working on it collectively. It's something we talk about in our sheriff's association. I speak of it with other sheriffs. Corrections is going to have an administrative conference just on this topic, and we're trying to come up with strategies to combat this. But I just brought it to your attention because it is a hot topic right now, and it may come up in NISAC, and I wanted you to be armed.
well, I want to thank you. And like I said, I'd make it to roll call over there and that. So thank you for, all that you do and try and keep us all protected. But, like I said, a criminal is going to be a criminal. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder how the program overall is doing.
I would have to think that it's beneficial. I will say that, we use the term criminal and inmate. And I'm going to say just from life experience that there are some good people that are housed in our facility and they struggle with addiction. And for me, my perspective is if we have 30 and this program helps one, it's worth it to me. I want to make sure that we're doing it. We're just going to really work and dig our heels in and do the best that we can to ensure that the 3, the 5, the 10% who are misusing it or not utilizing it properly are brought back in line so that, it's not jeopardizing those who are receiving the benefit. We want to make sure that if someone is coming to our house and we're taking care of them for 3 months, 6 months, a year, when they're released, they're set up with the best possible opportunity for success, and we don't want them to ever come back.
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, it's just like Suboxone.
It is Suboxone.
Okay, all right.
Supervisor
Thank
McDevitt.
you. Now I have a better understanding.
Again, and specifically the intent of Divergent or Suboxone, what it's to lessen the urge to take drug. What is this? What's the specific rationale for?
It serves as a bridge. People, the inmates will come in addicted, and it's an effort to try to wean them off and to lower the rates, the dosages, so that by the time that they're released, if they're not completely free of the drug and the addiction, that the need and the demand is lower, and that there is a policy, procedure, systems in place so that there is not a break in service. If they're coming in and they're receiving a program on the outside, on the inside, they receive the program, continue, and then the service, it's seamless from that time of release.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Driscoll.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Chair.
Okay, anybody else? Sheriff, thank you very much for being with us and for all you and your staff do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Any comments
Sure.
on any issue? Seeing none, accept the motion to adjourn. Supervisor Smith, second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any questions on motion? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.